สวัสดีครับ I want to thank the Faculty of Education. I want to thank Akron for having me here. It means a lot, and I am happy to be in Thailand. I want to thank you all. The people of Thailand have been amazing. I'm here very briefly to ask a question. I'm going to pose this question in the form of a poem. It begins, who can say how hard to teach our children to excel? Now we ask, how hard is hard enough? But we don't know how to tell. See, childhood years should overflow with games and lots of fun. But time is short and pressure's high for learning to be done. The national assessment is coming and your directions are clear. The students must be ready. I know there's a lot to fear. Because if the scores don't meet the threshold, then the piper we all must pay. So I guess we put the pressure on the students today. But no, that can't be the answer. Pressure crushes, it distorts. There has to be another way, one of the kinder sort. How about we take them on a journey, a road that dips and winds. And when they tire, we'll just continue learning of every kind. How about we help them deeply value what the journey has to teach? They'll succeed because we love them and because of the goals they reached. So at the end of our endeavors, when they take any kind of test, they'll know most of the answers, but for the ones they don't, they're empowered to do their best. There's a poem by Dr. Ron Ferguson, professor of education of Harvard University, empowered to do their best. I'm going to speak to you today about power, about putting power into the child so they work harder than you. The ultimate goal of supreme education is to empower a student to outwork you. It's the tenets of behavioral science that unlock this for us. And I want to talk to you about the power of behavioral science. But this may be confusing, so I want to talk a little bit about power. There's only two ways that we look at it. And this is a universal feel for us, giving these kids this power that they need to have. The first way you look at it is when you're driving. There's some of us that as soon as the needle in their car hits this point, they say, you know what, it's time to get gas. It's time to get fuel. As I scan the room, that might be a lot of you. These people are planners. They're looking ahead. When it comes to fuel, when it comes to power, they will never run out. And then there's the other type of people. These are the type that wait till the level gets here before they get gas. And that is me. I will drive my car on E, not because I don't care about power, it's because other things are on my mind. And now I have been handicapped because there's technology in the car that will let you drive on E. It will say to you, you have 10 miles till empty. It's called range. Now, if you are driving and you see a sign that says 5 miles to the gas station and 10 miles to empty, you keep on driving. But what if those numbers are reversed? What if you see the sign, it says 10 miles to the gas station, and the range says 5 miles to empty? Yes, I've been there, and nobody wants to be there. And when you get to that point, you turn everything but the engine off. You don't need the radio. You don't need to plug your phone. You don't need air conditioning, even though it's very hot in Thailand. You don't need any of that. You're nervous. And I'm sitting there and I'm nervous and I'm almost out. I'm about to run out of fuel. I'm at the end. The range doesn't say anything now. It says, I don't know how long you can go. And I see over the horizon the marquee for the fueling station. And it says that I'm almost there. And I say to myself, if I can just make it to, and I realize that's a conditional statement. If I can just make it to. I hear my teacher saying this. If I can just make it to the end of the year, if I can just make it to retirement, if I can just make it to the weekend, if I can just make it to this. And I'm realizing that our teachers are living a conditional life. Our jobs are not conditional jobs. This is not the type of work that we're supposed to be in, living, working on E. And so it has deep ramifications in the result of educators in the United States. One of our largest publications, Time Magazine, showed a crisis within our teachers. We have a teacher shortage. They're just trying to make it to. They're driving on empty. The same publication wrote about our students. In the United States, 6.3 million teenagers are diagnosed with anxiety or depression disorders. That's 1 out of 5. Living conditional, if I can just make it to lives. They're on empty. Teachers on empty. Students on empty. And it all falls to the administration to empower them, to lift it back up. So the question is, how do we do that? Well, I'm excited to be here to tell you there's a prerequisite for education. There's something that we must have before we enter every classroom. There's something we must know before we can start and engage in teaching. It is a prerequisite. And that is the answer to this very important question. Who are you? If you cannot answer this question, then how can our students answer this question? And if our students can't answer this question, then how can we ever expect them to be the leaders of the future that they need to be? See, in this question, we're not talking about who you will be or who you were. We're talking about right now. Who are you today? When a student is challenged today, do they know the answer to that question? When a student fails today, do they know the answer to that question? When a student's in trouble today, sad today, depressed today, struggling today, do they know the answer to this question? This is what I wanted to give to my students. The prerequisite for education. The key to unlocking that power in them. So to answer this question, we are all educators. In English, the word educate comes from the Latin, a Latin root, which has 2 meanings. The first one, educare, which means to train up. Now we're very familiar with that. It's the lesson plans, the curriculum, the books that we receive. And we are here to train our students' mind, body, and spirit. But there's a second definition of education we must all be aware of. and that is from the Latin educere, which means to lead out. There's something inside of every child that you are responsible for bringing out. What is that? What powers the child? What helps them overcome? What needs to be let out? It is the heart. Wu Chai. Your responsibility is to lead out the heart. On the first day of school, I bring my students out onto the field, all 1,400 of them, and I let them know the purpose of which we're here for. And they come out, and we form in formation. And I do a little exercise I'm going to do with you all, and forgive the barrier in translation, but we're going to try it. I want to make each one of them a part of a larger unit, just as we are here today. So when I say heart, you're going to clap the sound that a heart makes. Now, just to give you some help on this, the heart, one sound is, so you just clap twice. We'll try it. When I point at you, you're going to clap twice. Heart. That was almost good. Let's try it again. Heart. 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 Imagine on the first day of school, 1,400 students are amassed together. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. The sound of the collective heartbeats of each student brings them together. They know that for some reason, we are here for something bigger than a test. We're here something bigger than a diploma. This is something that is speaking to me. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. 1,400 of them collectively come together. Now, if you know anything about music, you'll know that the loudest sound in the room controls all the rhythm. So for the student that was nervous, boom, 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 boom. It calms them down. For the student who was dragging, boom, 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 boom. It lifts them up. Together, my teachers, our students, our prerequisite for education. What we wanted to do first, before anything, was to educate and empower the heart. That is our goal. Your students will transform. Your students will outwork you. They will surprise you when you empower the heart. So yes, I'm a behavioral scientist. And so I have to give you some tenets from the literature of how this works. Many people know of Sigmund Freud, but he had a contemporary. His contemporary was Dr. Alfred Adler, the founder of individual psychology. Alfred Adler believed in this potential power of every student. It's sitting there, waiting to come out. Sadly, for a lot of students, this potential power, just like potential energy, doesn't always come out. It's not always released. When a student doesn't give you their best, it hasn't been released. This potential power can only be unlocked by the educator using their power to unlock the potential power of every student. That is your mission first. How do we unlock this potential power inside of every child? It is using your art, your skill, all of these tools that we'll learn today. This potential power is great. If all of the students of Thailand had their potential power transformed and released, this would indeed be a world leader in not just education, but every walk of life. So to give you an example of that, I turn to nature. Nature tells us how empowered people will empower people. Nature gives us this understanding of how to unlock this potential. And to spare you the details of all the years of research, I will use an analogy: the fruit tree. See, the fruit tree starts out as a seed. And as a seed, it knows its job is to one day produce fruit. Unfortunately, as a seed, it will not produce fruit if it doesn't go successfully through 4 phases. Our children are like that seed. And they need to go through these 4 phases that you have to take them to unlock the gifts and the power that they have. What is the fruit that they produce? The fruit that they produce is a little different. It's not something you can grab off of the tree and bite. It is the fruit of the heart. It is the fruit of the Spirit. Their fruit is love, peace, understanding, gentleness, wisdom, courage, self-discipline. Their fruit makes our world better. This is the prerequisite of education. And so this little model that I use helps us take a student from empty to full. The first part of this model is they need to be empowered to be. To understand how to answer that first question of who they are. And so to be empowered to be, you have to understand why we even have schools. If we're going to put a seed is the first level where they start out. You have to plant it in fertile soil. A lot of our students in the United States, they're going to places and they're not planted in places where they will grow. So I asked my teachers, why do we have schools? I assembled them here. I have 93 teachers. They assembled just as you were assembled today. I gave each one of them the assignment to write in why we have schools and to turn those in. When I took all of the answers in, this was the response from my teachers. It wasn't from me, it was from my teachers. Now, you may not be able to read this, but there were some words that came up very big. In this word cloud, what's said often appears big. What's not said often, it appears small. My teacher said, Dr. Ross, we're here for students. I said, what else? We're here to prepare students. Prepare them for what? For life. What kind of life? A productive life. And from that, it was clear the type of soil we would plant our students in. We prepare all students for productive lives. This had nothing to do with a test. We weren't preparing them for a test. It had nothing to do with graduation rates. We weren't preparing them for graduation. It had nothing to do with any other of the measures that schools were measured by. We cared about their life. And my teachers, they set the vision that we would have. We prepare all students for productive lives. So as a result, now the scale goes up higher of what we're supposed to do. But I'm going to tell you, that's very hard. When you have a vision, getting there is very hard. I'm going to give you a lesson from Thanksgiving. In the United States, right now, we're about to end Thanksgiving. And we start shopping immediately after dinner at Black Friday. And y'all are doing that too, so we appreciate that. And at Thanksgiving, we eat a lot. And I asked my teachers, I said, they were tired, they get frustrated around Thanksgiving time, they don't want to teach. I said, if you could just push through, I will feed you. And I said, now, if I feed you, could you make the desserts? And we did a contest about who was going to make the desserts, and every department put in a dessert piece. And we had a beautiful spread. And I decided that I was going to make a dessert as well. So I went online and I pulled up from recipes.com this beautiful cake that I was going to make for my teachers. Someone said, well, Dr. Ross, have you ever made a cake? I said, no, but I have a degree and I know how to read instructions. So I went to the task on trying to make this cake. I started at 6 o'clock. At 2 a.m. in the morning, I'm still working on this. I'm trying to put the final details on this cake because I want it to be perfect for my teachers. And when I step back, this is the result. And I realized something, a very valuable lesson, that your intentions are not enough. Just because you get a good policy or just because you give a directive to your teachers, that's not enough. How many times in education we see policy that looks like this, but results that look like that? We must make our intent our reality. And so when you're creating an environment, it doesn't matter what you say your environment's going to be. The question comes down to, what's the reality for every student? Can every student grow? Being excited about a policy or procedure does nothing if it cannot be implemented correctly. You're here today to learn how to implement correctly the strategies that you're here to learn about. The next piece that I want everyone to understand is that we should be empowered to see. Every student needs to be empowered to see who they are. That is represented by the leaf of the tree. The leaf of the tree is a sign of growth. That growth of every child. Now, I'm going to tell you this is a little embarrassing, but the day I was named principal, this was the headline of the newspaper, the local newspaper. He flunked third grade. Now he's the best high school principal in the nation. Now, that's not flattering. They took my failure, my biggest failure in life, and they connected it to my greatest success. See, in the United States, if you fail the third grade in reading, you are 4 times likely not to graduate from high school. In the United States, if you don't graduate from high school on time, you are 63 times likely to be incarcerated. So how does a student who failed the third grade, all Fs, become one of the country's best principals? I was empowered to see something. I was given that leaf. And who gave it to me? I had a teacher. My first third grade teacher, when I was in the third grade, my first teacher, I can't say her name, I don't want to embarrass her. But when I didn't believe in myself, she allowed me not to believe in myself. And so I would turn in the work that I know was an F, and I give it to her, and she looked at it, she said, yeah, this is an F. And she put it down, and we went on to the next thing. We get to the next chapter. I have my F paper. I give it to her. She looks at it. She says, yep, this is an F. We go on to the next chapter. And we did that throughout the entire year. I failed the third grade. I flunked the state exam. My mother comes up to the school. She asks the principal, who do you have that can help my son? I know the statistics of students who don't read on time. I know the statistics of students who don't graduate on time. I don't want that to be my son. Who do you have? And so he gave to me a teacher named Mischievous. And I'm going to tell you a little something about Mischievous. Mischievous was not a nice person. She was kicked out of the Marine Corps for making the soldiers cry. So they put her in elementary school. That's where I learned it. It was rumored that she smiled once, but we haven't confirmed that. And Mischievous became my teacher. On the first day, I walk into Mischievous class with every intention of flunking because that's what I was used to doing. We get to the chapter 1 gateway. She gives me the paper. I take it and I do what I always do. I give her back the F. She looks at it. She said, this is sad. I said, yes, ma'am, I know. She said, do it again. Now, this has never happened to me. I've never been asked to do it again. We're supposed to go on. We're supposed to go to the next chapter, the next lesson. And now you're saying, do it again. She said, yes, do it again. So I go back. I said, maybe she don't know what she's doing. I give her the F again. She said, do it again. I go back, and I can remember, there's a lot of success in this room. But until you've been in deep, miserable failure, you just don't know, or you may not know, or maybe you do know just what it means to try. What did Mischievous give to me? She gave me the faith to take a step when I didn't think anything was there. That's the prerequisite of education. She was on to something bigger. It wasn't about the lesson plan. She wanted me to try on my own, to take a step. Thailand, I remember the first day in school, I can remember when I tried. When I took that potential energy and released it for the first time. A teacher did that. An educator did that. I tried. Now, that's not big to you, but it's everything to me. It's the reason that I could make that transition. She gave me faith. And when I tried, I came back, and I got a D. That's still failing, but it wasn't a bad fail. She said, now do it again. And I went back with my D strutting. And I remember when I finally passed, her expectations were high. The rest of the class was way down there, but I finally passed, and she said, I told you you can do it. Now go on to chapter 2. Thailand, that is education. That, when you have that, you can build anything on top of it. When a student will try when they don't believe, have faith when they can't see it, will step forward when no one says they can't, will keep going when everyone stops, now you can educate. That is the power that you possess. Give them the ability to see just who they really are. When that light shines on them, when they can see out of the darkness. In education, we use the torch as our symbol. We give them the power to see so that they can take that step. That's your power. The fourth thing is that I am empowered for me. I'm empowered for me. This is represented by the flower of the tree. The flower shines bright. The flower draws attention. The flower gives you the credit. Every student has that flower phase in their life. And sometimes that flower phase is hindered by discipline. I went to a great school yesterday. All of the children were wonderfully behaved, paying attention to the teacher. That's not the case in the United States. We have tough discipline problems. Students are not listening to the teacher. Social issues are driving teachers out of the classroom in the United States. And so as a principal, I thought my job was to discipline everybody into being good. And how I did that was through suspensions. This is a tool in the United States. We tell you don't come to school today. And I would suspend anyone who wasn't following the rules. But the result was they weren't learning. They weren't getting back. It was a school counselor who came to me and she said, "Dr. Ross, do you know what discipline means?" I said, "Yes, it means to make them do right." She says, "No. Discipline means to teach. You're not teaching anything. You're punishing. Punishment means to pay. And all these students are doing is thinking of ways to make you pay back." And so we changed the way we disciplined. Instead of discipline being something that was to make you feel bad or ashamed, discipline became teaching. So my D hall changed, my detention center, my place where we put students who were in trouble, they were no longer seen as in trouble. For them, they came to this room where they would come in circle and they would talk about their issues. They would talk about their problems. They would learn how to improve themselves. There's 4 major tenets of this, or 3 majors. I'll read them out to you. The first one is the impact of one's actions are made known. We tell them what was wrong, and a lot of times our students didn't even know what they did wrong. The second one is we gave the students the possibilities to make alternative actions. What could you have done better in this situation? And then the last and most important thing, we asked the students, how do you fix this? How do you repair what you did? Let me show you some data points. We put this program in at the middle of the year. We took our top 10 most offending students, and we put them in this program in the 9th grade, year 9. By year 10, of those 10 students with the most discipline, only 1 was a reoffender. That's 90% success rate. What you may not have caught is that all 10 of them went to year 10. Never before has that happened in my school. Never before have we had all of the most students who were in trouble, students who had the discipline issues. Never before had they all gone to year 10. That is the power of these restorative practices that we put in place to allow our students to show who they are. That's the flower. Then the last one, the most important, is that students know that they're empowered, that we, and what does that mean? They have the fruit that they can produce fruit, that of love, that of kindness, the fruit of joy, that they can define themselves in the midst of a storm, that we can all benefit. See, it's not about, in this last phase, it's not about them anymore. It's about the collective. It's about the group. In the last phase, when they're producing their fruit, they're given to others. When the tree makes fruit, it's not for the tree, it's for others. And so, my students would come together and they would form up in one circle, and we call this the heart of our school. And the heart of our school meant that every student was responsible for every other student in that school building. That our ultimate goal was for every student to protect, to care, to love, and to provide for every student in the school. This is the prerequisite for education. This is what education is all about. We must build on top of the already successful things that you're doing, but putting in place a mechanism that will empower our students to work harder at their goal than you will. That's the power of the heart. Oh, come on, you left me. Heart, 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 heart. Boom, boom. Remember that power. It rests within inside of you. Every single day, every hour, every minute, every second, your heart beats. I am. I am. I am. You are empowered to empower others. You are empowered to empower the future. You are empowered to give every student what they need to be successful. Boom, 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 boom. I call that the EKG. And EKG means an empowered student is someone who knows their gift, plus is able to give their gift. I write about this in my book called Empowering the Heart. It's about reviving education for tomorrow. It's about giving teachers and educators like yourselves a toolkit to get the most out of our students. The prerequisite for learning, how to empower students. It's all in the heart. We love to educate the head. We need to educate the hands, but it's all connected by educating the heart. Empower your students to know who they are and to give their gifts to the world. I'd like to end with a story. A story told us a lot about my life. And this story is about a large piece of stone. This stone was quarried in 1466 in Italy. Came from a Tuscany mine. Those who commissioned this artwork said, I would like for someone to sculpt a nice statue from this quarry mine. And they took the block of stone out and they gave it to the best sculptor of the day. The sculptor looked at it, he examined the stone, and he said, this is poor quality stone, I cannot work with it. He rejected it. Years pass, and another artisan comes along, and they asked this artisan, they said, can you work with this stone? It's a great block of marble. It has been rejected once. This artisan comes, and he starts working on it, and he stops, and he says, I cannot do anything with this. It's poor quality marble. and he rejected the stone. Now, this twice rejected stone sits out in the elements for 25 years, to the wind, to the rain, rejected. And along comes a 26-year-old sculptor, a scientist. And this scientist has a new idea. He says, instead of using my techniques that I have perfected, I'm going to come up with a technique of adapting what I do to the needs of the medium that I'm working with. I don't use the same techniques all of the time. And so this artist, he comes up to the stone and he looks at it and he comes up with new strategies. And he starts to work on this rejected stone. Well, what is the result? The most recognized statue of our age. That artisan was Michelangelo. He said, I saw an angel in the marble, and I carved until I set him free. What do I need from you? What is my purpose of being here? Is to remind you that your students have potential power locked inside of them. They're angels in the stone. And your job, your calling, your mission in life, the prerequisite for learning is to carve until you can set them free. Once you set them free, once you release them, there will be amazing achievements on the horizon. That is the role of the educator. That is the power that you have. I'd like to leave you with a poem, and this is of a student who was just frustrated with why his teacher was working so hard. It reminds me of myself a little bit when it came down to my teacher, Mischievous. This student was sitting in the back of the room. He raised his hand. The teacher called on him, and he says, "May I pose you a question?" Asked the student of the teacher. "Why do you work so hard to make us better than we were?" Now, you were hired to give us lessons so that we could pass a test. Most times we haven't listened, and we certainly haven't done our best. Yet you keep coming back, teaching us day after day. Why do you persist, not letting the chips fall as they may? The teacher paused for a moment to consider the question at hand. I'll put this in a way that you would understand. Like the painter with the brush can bring a canvas to life, like the sculptor improves the stone with hammer and knife. I see and uncover the gifts inside you so that one day your gifts will give others value. Every artist has great vision. They can see through life's storms. With their hands, they use tools, but it's their heart that transforms. My passion is your growth as the gardener grows the flower. That is the secret to my strength. I'm empowered to empower. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.